Hi everyone, welcome to Amariq Studio. This video is the start of a brand new Figma crash course playlist where we will go step by step through everything you need to know from basics to advanced design systems. So if you have just opened Figma for the first time or you have been using it without really knowing where things are, this video is going to make everything clear. Let's get started. When you open Figma, the first thing you will notice is your workspace. On the left side, you will see two tabs, File and Assets. The File tab shows your pages at the top and layers below. Think of layers like the structures of your design. Every frame, image, text or shape you add will appear here. If you double click the name, you can rename it. It's a good habit to start from the beginning. Now switch to the Assets tab. This is where all your reusable components and libraries live. You can even browse ready-made UI kits like Material Design, iOS or macOS and drag elements directly into your canvas. We will use this later when we start creating design systems. Let's look at the bottom toolbar because this is where you will be working the most. Here you will find all your tools, starting with the Move tool, Frame tool, Shape tool, Pen, Text, and more. You can quickly switch between them using shortcuts like V for Move tool, F for Frame tool, R for Rectangle tool, T for Text tool, and P for Pen tool. You can also hold the spacebar to pen around the canvas or press Ctrl or Command K to open the quick action menu. Type anything and Figma will find it instantly. The big area in the middle is your canvas. This is where all your design happens. You can zoom in or out using Ctrl or Command plus and Ctrl or Command minus. If you ever get lost, just press Shift 1. It will fit everything back on your screen. Now look at the right side. It's your properties panel. This area changes based on what you select. If you click on a frame, you will see its width, height, alignment, layout, and fill options. If you select text, you will get typography controls instant. So think of the right panel as your control center for styling and layout. Alright, let's make your first frame. Press F on your keyboard and on the right you will see a list of presets, desktop, tablet, phone, etc. Click on desktop 1440 and you will see a frame appear on your canvas. Rename it in the left panel to something clean like homepage. This is where we will start designing in the next few videos. Now let's personalize a few settings to make your workflow smoother. Go up to the Figma menu, Preferences, turn on Snap to Pixel Grid and show dimensions on object. These make your spacing and alignment cleaner. Also check nudge amount. I recommend keeping it at 8 pixels so your spacing follows the 8-point system most designers use. And if you prefer dark mode, you can switch it here too. Let's try a quick example before we wrap up. Press R to draw a rectangle. Then press T to add a text on top of it. Now select both and press Shift A to apply auto layout. You will see spacing and padding options appear on the right. Try increasing the padding and watch how everything adjusts automatically. This is what makes Figma so powerful. And that's it for this first video. You have learned how to navigate the interface, use essential tools, set preferences, and apply a few shortcuts. In the next tutorial, we will go deeper into frames, groups, and sections. You will finally understand how to keep your designs clean and organized from the very start. If you want to follow the full playlist, make sure to subscribe and stay tuned. Hi everyone, welcome back to Amariq Studio, and this is the next video in the Figma Master Series. In the last episode, we explored Figma's interface and learned all the essential shortcuts. Now it's time to understand one of the most important things inside Figma: frames, groups, and sections. These three might look similar at first, but they behave very differently. And if you mix them up, your file can turn into a mess. So let's go step by step, and I will make it super easy to remember when to use what. Let's start with frames. Think of a frame as the backbone of your design. It's like a container that holds everything together. You can create one by pressing F on your keyboard or by selecting the frame icon from the toolbar at the bottom. Frames are special because they can contain other frames inside them. This means you can have a frame for your whole website layout and smaller frames inside for your hero sections, navbar, and footer. Frames also let you add auto layout, constraints, and responsive resizing. These are things groups can do. So whenever you are building structure or layout, always use frames. Let's see this in action. Draw a frame for your website, rename it homepage. Now inside it, create another frame for your hero section. You can resize, align, or apply auto layout independently. Everything stays neat and controlled. That's the beauty of frames. Now what about groups? Groups are very simple. They are mainly for keeping elements together visually, but not for layout control. To create a group, select a few objects and press Command G or Ctrl G on Windows. You will see them combined under one layer in the left panel. Here is the key difference. Groups don't have layout or constraints. If you move one element inside, it can easily overlap or go out of alignment. So groups are good for quick organization like grouping icons or set of buttons, but they are not great for structure or responsiveness. In short, use frames to build layout and use groups just to keep related items together temporarily. Finally, let's talk about sections. Sections are for organizing your workspace, not your actual design. Press Shift S to create one. You can drag it around and put frames or groups inside it. Sections don't affect how your design behaves. They just help you stay organized on large projects. For example, you can have one section called homepage, another called about, and another for components. You can even color code them or collapse them to keep your canvas clean. Sections are perfect for project management inside Figma. Alright, just a quick recap before we finish. Frames are for structure and layout, groups are for simple visual organization, and sections are for managing your workspace. Once you understand this difference, your workflow will become 10x faster and way more organized. And that's it for this tutorial. In the next video, we will move one step deeper into layers and hierarchy, how to nest elements properly, lock layers, and name things the right way so your design stays perfectly structured. If this video helped, hit like, subscribe, and keep following the Figma Mastery playlist because each video builds on the last one and you don't want to miss what's coming next. Hey everyone, welcome back to Amariq Studio, and this is the next video in the Figma Mastery series. In the last episode we talked about frames, groups and sections and learned how to keep our layouts clean and organized. Now it's time to go one step deeper into layers and hierarchy. If you have ever felt lost inside the layers panel or confused about why things overlap or disappear, this video will clear all of that up. Let's start from the basics. Every element in Figma, text, shape, frame or group, sits on a layer. Think of it like stacking sheets of paper. The layer that's on top will always appear above the one that's below it. You can see this clearly in the layers panel on the left side. The higher a layer is in the list, the more on top it appears visually on the canvas. Now here is why hierarchy comes in. When you place one element inside another, like a button inside a frame, that's called nesting. This creates a parent and child relationship. The frame becomes the parent and the button is the child. If you move the frame, everything inside it moves together. This nesting system is what keeps your design organized and predictable. Let's try this out. Create a frame and rename it Hero Section. Inside it, add a text layer for the title, another for the subtitle, and one button. Now if you expand the arrow beside Hero Section in the layers panel, you will see everything nested properly inside. That's how hierarchy works. Clean, structured, and easy to manage. If you ever see a layer sitting outside when it shouldn't be, just drag it underneath the correct frame in the left side. That's how you fix broken hierarchies. Next, locking layers. Sometimes you want to prevent accidentally selecting or moving something like a background or an image. To lock a layer, just press Command Shift L or Control Shift L on window, or click the little icon next to it in the panel. You will notice it becomes unselectable on the canvas. Super useful when you are working on small details above it. To unlock, just click the lock icon again or use the same shortcut. Locking is a tiny habit that makes your workflow smoother and avoids a lot of frustration later. Now let's talk about naming layers, something most designers ignore but professionals never skip. When your project grows and you end up with 200 unnamed layers like rectangle 57 or frame 89, things get messy fast. So start naming from day one. Select your layer and press Command R or Ctrl R to rename. Keep names short but clear like header BG, hero title or CTA button. If you are working on multiple pages or sections, you can use slashes, for example home/hero/button. This helps organize layers in a folder-like structure and makes everything easy to find later. Before we wrap up, let's do a quick recap. Layers are like stacked sheets. Top layers appear above the lower ones. Hierarchy defines how elements nest and move together. Locking prevents mistakes when editing. Naming layers properly keeps your workflow fast and professional. If you follow these habits from now on, you will never feel lost inside your Figma file again. And that's it for this video. In the next one, we will start setting up your first project. How to create a new file, set up your page, and prepare everything for a clean start before you dive into real UI design. If you are learning something new, drop a like, subscribe, and keep following the Figma Master playlist because we are slowly building your full design foundation step by step. Hi everyone, welcome back to Amariq Studio, and this is the next episode of Figma Master Series. In the last video, we explored layers and hierarchy, how to name, lock and organize them like a pro. Now it's time to put everything together and set up your very first project in Figma. This is where most beginners either skip steps or start messy, but I'll show you how professionals actually prepare a clean project before starting any design. So let's get started. When you open Figma, click on the New Design File button. You will see a fresh blank canvas. This is your main working area. But before we start designing anything, let's prepare it properly. On the left, rename your file. Just click on the title. It might say Untitled and name it something clear like Website Project or Portfolio Layout. Naming your files properly might seem small, but trust me, when you start working with clients or teams, this habit makes a huge difference. Now let's talk about pages. If you look at the left sidebar, you will see a pages section at the top. Right now you probably have just one page called page 1. Pages are great for keeping different parts of your project separated. For example, you can have one project for design, one for components, and another for prototypes or client's note. Click the plus icon to add a new page and double click to rename them. Let's rename page 1 to design and create another called components. This will give your project a clean structure from the start. Now on your main page, let's create a frame that matches your target screen size. Press F on your keyboard and look on the right sidebar. You will see preset options like desktop, tablet and mobile. Choose desktop 1440 pixels if you are designing a website, or iPhone 14 if you are designing a mobile app. This frame acts as your canvas within the canvas. It defines your layout area and helps you design within proper dimensions. You can rename it to something like homepage or main layout. Let's now set up your grid system and guides so your design stays consistent. With your frame selected, look at the right panel and find the layout grid option. Click the plus icon. You will get a basic square grid. Click the little grid icon to switch to columns. Now set it to 12 columns, margin 80 pixels and gutter 20 pixels. That's a common setup for web design. This might feel advanced, but it will help you align everything perfectly later on, just like in real-world projects. Once your frame is ready, let's also set the background color for your file. Click on an empty area on the canvas, not inside the frame, and on the right side you will see a fill color option. Choose a neutral tone like light gray or off-white. This gives you better visual contrast when working on dark or bright sections later. Alright, let's quickly recap what we did. We created a new design file and renamed it properly, added multiple pages to stay organized, set up a frame with the right size, created a grid layout for alignment, and adjusted our canvas background for better visibility. These small steps might feel simple, but they build the foundation for every professional Figma project you will ever create. And that's it for this tutorial. In the next episode, we will dive into one of the most powerful tools in Figma, Auto Layout. You will learn how to make your design responsive, clean, and fully adaptable with just a few clicks. If this video helped you, make sure to like, subscribe, and follow the Figma Master playlist. We are getting closer to designing like a real professionals. Hey everyone, welcome back to Amariq Studio, and this is the next episode of the Figma Master Series. In the last video, we set up our first Figma project. Now it's time to learn one of the most powerful tools inside Figma, which is Auto Layout. This feature makes your design smart. Everything stays aligned, responsive, and perfectly spaced without moving things manually. Let's see how it works step by step. First, select any frame or create one by pressing F. Now look at the right hand sidebar. You will see sections like position, auto layout, appearance, fill, and so on. In the new update, Figma moved all auto layout controls into their own clean section right under position. To turn it on, click the auto layout plus button. Once you do, your frame becomes an auto layout container and the controls below update immediately. At the top of the auto layout section, you will see flow, now with 4 layout options. Number 1, Freeform. This is the default mode. It lets you move elements freely, just like normal Figma frames. Nothing snaps or aligns automatically. You will use this when you don't need any layout structure. Number 2, Vertical. It stacks elements from top to bottom. Perfect for things like cards, lists, or stacked section. Number 3, Horizontal. It places elements side by side, ideal for buttons, navbars, or features rows. Number 4, Grid, which is now in beta. This new experimental option gives you a structured grid-like behavior inside Auto Layout. It allows elements to wrap automatically and align more evenly. Great for galleries, responsive cards, or product grids. You can toggle between any of these anytime depending on your layout type. Figma updates the positioning instantly. Right below that, you will see Resizing. There are 2 drop-downs here, one for width and one for height. These control how your frame behaves when the content or parent size changes. Each can be set to fixed, hug, or fill. Let me explain this. Start with fixed. This means nothing happens automatically. The size stays constant and you have to adjust it manually whenever you resize or change content. Think of this as full manual control. It's great when you want the element to always stay the same size. For example, a container that shouldn't stretch or shrink. Then we have hug. This option tells the parent frame to hug its children tightly by removing all extra space around them. The frame resizes automatically based on the size of what's inside. It's mostly used for buttons, text, or small components where you want the background to fit perfectly around the text or icon. For example, if you type more text inside a button, the frame automatically grows with it. And finally, fill. This is used by child elements, not the parent. It makes the selected child stretch and occupy all the remaining available space inside its parent. So if 2 children are set to fill, they will share the available width or height equally. This is perfect for layouts where you want elements to distribute evenly, like columns or cards. Next comes alignment. You will see a small 3x3 grid of alignment icons. that controls where your elements sit inside the auto layout frame. Each icon represents both vertical and horizontal positioning inside that frame. You can align item to the top, middle or bottom, and to the left, center or right. Here is how designers usually use them. Center everything vertically and horizontally when you are creating buttons or labels. This makes them look balanced. And align items to the top or left when working with stack layouts, list elements or forms. And distribute evenly when you are building grids or navigation bars where equal spacing matters. Then you have gap, the small field right beside the alignment icons. This controls the spacing between items inside your auto layout. Type any number or drag to adjust. For example, 8 means each element will stay 8 pixels apart. You can even preview this by holding Option on the keyboard and hovering between elements. Next, down the panel is padding, the space between the content and the edge of your frame. By default, you will see two fields with the link icon enabled. The left field controls top and bottom together, and the right field controls left and right together. If you click the link icon to unlink, it switches to 4 fields, so you can set top, right, bottom, left independently. For example, a clean button setup is 12 pixels for top and bottom and 24 pixels for left and right. As soon as you change padding, the frame size updates automatically. You will see something like this. That's Figma adjusting for you. If you need to hide overflow, turn on clip content right below the padding controls. Here is what that means. When a child element inside your frame goes outside its boundary, for example, you move an element slightly beyond the edge of a card, by default, you will still see it sticking out on the canvas. But if you turn clip content on, Figma hides everything outside the frame's edges, just like cropping in Photoshop. For example, imagine you have a profile card frame with a circular photo placed inside. If the image is larger than the circle and part of it hanging out, enabling clip content will neatly crop it to stay inside the card's boundary. Now let's see the auto layout in action. I will place an icon inside this frame. Notice how it automatically sits according to the alignment we set. If I duplicate it, Figma maintains perfect spacing between them. No manual nudging. Now if I add a new elements, everything reflows automatically. That's the power of auto layout. It changes instantly while staying pixel perfect. Let's quickly recap. Auto layout now lives directly under the position section. Use direction buttons for vertical or horizontal flows. Control resizing with fixed, hug and fill. Remember that hug works for parent frames, fill applies to children, and fixed always stays manual for both. Adjust alignment and gap for perfect spacing. Set padding to create balanced breathing room. And use clip content to keep everything tidy. Once you start using this properly, you will instantly feel how much smarter and cleaner your designs become. No more dragging or guessing pixel values. And that's it for this tutorial. In the next video, we will dive into shapes and the pen tool, learning how to draw and edit custom icons or illustrations directly inside Figma. If this video helped you, don't forget to like, subscribe and follow the Figma Mastery playlist. We are just getting started. Thank you for watching. Hi everyone, welcome back to Amariq Studio, and this is the next episode of Figma Mastery playlist. In the last few videos, we covered frames, layers, project setup and auto layout, the things that help you stay organized and build clean structure. Now we are moving into something more creative, shapes and the pen tool. This is where you learn how to actually draw inside Figma, like icons, simple illustrations, custom shapes and anything you want. Don't worry, this is going to be super easy to understand. Let's start with shapes. At the bottom toolbar, you will see the shape tools: rectangle, line, arrow, ellipse, polygon, and star. Each one works the same way. Click and drag. So let's try a few. First, draw a rectangle. If you hold shift, it becomes a perfect square. Now draw a circle using the ellipse tool. Again, hold shift to keep it perfect. If you want to edit the corners, select your shape and look at the right sidebar. You will see corner radius. You can set one value for all corners like this, or click this little icon to unlock and adjust each corner separately. This is great for UI elements like rounded cards, pill-shaped buttons, input fields and more. Now let's try lines and arrows. When you select the line tool, click once at the starting point, then drag your cursor to the end point without releasing the click, and you will get a line like this. If you want it perfectly straight, either horizontal or vertical, make sure to hold the shift key while dragging. The arrow tool works the exact same way. Just select the arrow tool and drag from one point to another. Figma will automatically add arrowheads, which is perfect for flows, diagrams, callout, or any type of annotation inside your design. You can control the stroke thickness, color, or even the arrowhead style from the right sidebar, so you can match it with the rest of your design easily. Now the more interesting part is the pen tool. The pen tool is where you can create any custom shape, not just rectangles or circles. Click on the pen tool, then click once on the canvas. It creates your first point. Click again and you will see a straight line connecting them. If you click again, you will create a third point, and now it's starting to look like a shape. If you want curves, just click and drag while placing a point. You will see smooth handles appear. This is how you draw icons, waves, and anything you want. Don't worry if it feels strange at first. It takes everyone a little time to get used to the pen tool. But once it clicks, you can draw anything. Now let me show you how to edit your pen tool shape. Select your shape and just press enter. This puts you into vector edit mode. You will see all the little points appear. And these are your nodes or vector points. Now you can click and move them around. Pull the bezier handles and reshape your design however you want. This is how you fix mistakes, smooth a curve, or adjust sharp corners. If you look on the right sidebar, you will see the point types: no mirroring, mirror angle and length. Switching between these changes how the curve behaves when you move one side of the handle. So you can create perfectly smooth curves, sharp corners, or control custom shapes very easily. Now let me show you something really fun: Boolean operations. This is one of my favorite feature in Figma because you don't always have to draw shapes from scratch. Sometimes you can just combine simple shapes to create something new. Let's try it. First, draw a circle. Then draw a rectangle and place it halfway over the circle. To make it easier to understand, I will change the colors so you can see the overlap clearly. Now select both shapes and look at the top bar. You will see a drop down with 5 options: union, subtract, intersect, exclude, and flatten. Let me show you what each one does. If I click subtract, Figma cuts the rectangle out of the circle, so the rectangle becomes a cutter shape. If I click union, it joins the circle and the rectangle into one single combined shape. You will see it instantly merge like this. And if I click intersect, it keeps only the overlapping area. Let me undo that and show it again. Whatever part overlays stays and everything else disappears. Now if I click exclude, it does the opposite. It keeps everything except the overlap, so the middle area gets removed. And finally, if you click flatten, it turns your selected shapes into a single vector. You can see from the layers panel that the name automatically changes to vector. And now you can edit it point by point with the pen tool. This is how people create custom icons, play buttons, camera shapes, notification bells, or any unique symbol, all by combining simple shapes. Here is something many beginners don't know. You can convert any shape into a vector. Right-click the shape and click on outside stroke. As you can see on the top, it's now a vector. Now you can see nodes and edit them just like the pen tool. This lets you turn a basic rectangle into something custom. Next, I'm going to give a quick example to tie this all together. Let's make a simple icon. Create a circle, give it a color, Duplicate it by pressing Option and drag. Place the second one on top and use subtract to cut out the shape. Now take the pen tool and draw a small curved line inside it. In just a few steps, you made a custom moon icon, clean and scalable. This is the real power of shapes and vectors. Let's do a quick recap. Shapes help you build fast. The pen tool helps you build anything. Boolean operations help you combine and customize. And vectors editing help you fine-tune every detail. Once you start mixing these together, you will be able to create your own icons, illustrations, and unique design elements without ever leaving Figma. And that's it for this tutorial. In the next episode, we are going to explore assets and libraries, how to reuse your components, share elements between files, and speed up your entire workflow. If this video helped you, make sure to like, subscribe, and keep following the Figma Mastery playlist. We are slowly building your entire design foundation step by step. Thank you for watching. Alright, welcome back. By now, you already know the basics, frames, layers, auto layout, and the core tools you will use in every project. From this point, we are stepping into the part of Figma that really speeds up your entire workflow. These are the features that help you stay organized and design much faster. Things like reusable assets and shared libraries. This is the foundation for everything we will build in the next few episodes. So I will keep it simple and guide you step by step. First, let's talk about what assets are in Figma. On the left side, you will see two tabs. You have been using the Layers tab until now. Right next to it, you will find the Asset tab. Think of the Assets tab as your collection drawer. Anything you want to reuse later like icons, buttons, navigation bars, or logos will eventually live here. With the new Figma interface, the Assets panel has a simple layout. At the top, there is a search bar. Right below it, you will see a message that says no libraries here yet. And under that, you will see a list of built-in UI kits like iOS, Material 3, Mac OS, Watch OS, and Vision OS. These UI kits are just pre-made design systems from Apple, Google, and others. We are not using them in this series, but it's helpful to know they exist. For now, your own assets panel will look empty because we have not created any reusable elements yet. But from the next episode onward, this drawer will start filling up with components and variants as we build them together. Just remember, this is the place where all your reusable design elements will appear. Now let's open the library manager. At the top of the assets panel, you will see a little book icon. Click on it and you will get the new Manage Libraries window. In this new UI, everything is organized into clear sections. The first one is this file. This is where the components you created inside this file will appear. These are your local components, private to this file until you publish them. If you create a button or card component, it will show up here under this file. Then you have updates, where Figma will show any changes available from libraries you are using. Below that, there are three more sections: Recommended, Themes, and UI Kits. Recommended shows the libraries Figma thinks you might want to enable. Themes show theme libraries you have access to. UI Kits is where all the famous design systems live, like Material 3, iOS, Mac OS, Vision OS, and so on. If you click on any of these UI kits, you can enable them with one click. Once you enabled, all their components will appear in your Assets tab. We won't use this now, but it's useful to see how a big design system is structured. Back inside the This File section, you will see a Publish button on the right. When we start creating component in the next few episodes, this is the button you will use to turn your local components into a real library. Once you publish them, they become reusable across any file, just like a professional design system. If you update a component later, like changing the corner radius or the color, you can publish the update and every file that uses that component will get the new version instantly. This is what makes libraries so powerful. Now let me show you something very simple but important. If I draw a shape or even create a frame, then look over at the Assets panel on the left, you will notice that nothing appears there. That's because the Assets tab only displays components, not normal shapes or frames. So right now, it's completely normal if your Assets panel looks empty. But watch this. If I select this rectangle and quickly turn it into a component, you will immediately see it appear under created in this file inside the asset tab. That's the key idea. The assets panel is only for components. In the next few videos, you are going to become a pro at components. How to build them, reuse them, create variants, and structure your entire UI with them. Today's video is just about understanding where everything will live once we start building reusable parts. Inside the UI Kits tab, you will see a big preview card for Material 3 Design Kit, Simple Design System, iOS 18 plus iPod OS 18, Mac OS 26, Watch OS 26, Vision OS 26. These are official design kits made for prototyping. If you enable them, their components show up instantly inside your assets panel, ready to drag onto the canvas. We are not going to use them in this series because the goal here is to build your own design system from scratch. But it's useful to know where they live. And that's it for this one. Short, simple, and exactly what you need before we start building components. In the next video, we will finally create your first component and understand how components versus instances work. This is where your speed, consistency, and professional workflow truly begin. If you are enjoying this series, stay with me. Make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a random comment to support the channel. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one. Alright, welcome back to the Figma Master Series. In the last episode, we understood where assets live inside Figma and why libraries exist. And today, we are entering one of the most important parts of this entire course. This lesson is about component and instances. If you master this topic, your entire design journey will become easier, faster, and cleaner. First, I want to imagine something simple. Let's say you draw a button, a rectangle with some text inside it. This is just a drawing right now, nothing special, just a shape and a text layer grouped together. Now imagine you are working on a large project. You may have 20 screens, and maybe each screen have 5 or 6 of these buttons. That means you are dealing with maybe 50 or 60 buttons in total. Now imagine your client suddenly says, I want all buttons to have rounded corners. Or the client says, I want the button color to be slightly darker. Or they tell you, please increase the font size inside the button. If you don't use components, you have to manually change every single button, one by one, 50 times. And this is how beginners get stuck. They spend hours fixing tiny things. Now let's understand how professionals solve this problem. A component is simply the main version of something. Think of it as the original, the master copy. Imagine you make one perfect button. You look at the spacing, you fix the text, you check the alignment, everything looks exactly right. This one button becomes your hero button, your original button. This is the version you want to reuse again and again. When you turn this hero button into a component, Figma remembers it. It treats this as the main source. And whenever you use this button somewhere else, Figma knows that this new version is connected to the main one. This is how components work. One main version, many connected versions. If you update the main version, all the connected versions update automatically. And that is how real UI designers keep hundreds of screens consistent. Let me explain it like you are 5 years old. Imagine you have a stamp, the wooden block with the rubber shape in the original stamp. When you press it on the paper, you get a print of the stamp. The prints are copies. The wooden block is the original. If you change the design of the wooden block, all future prints will look different. But if you want to change every older print, you can't. You would have to erase them and stamp again. Figma works almost exactly the same. Your component is the wooden block, your instances are the prints. This simple idea is the foundation of every professional interface ever designed. Now let's do this inside Figma step by step. Look at your empty canvas. Let's draw a simple button. Use the rectangle tool and draw a shape. Make it the size you want. Then add a text layer on top of it. Write something like button or click me. Make sure your text and rectangle are aligned. Make sure your spacing looks clean. This is your button in its raw form. Now select both the rectangle and the text. Don't worry if this feels too simple. Every component in the world starts like this. Once you have them selected, right click, scroll down until you see the option Create Component. Click that. Or if you want to be fancy and faster, press Option Command K on Mac or Alt Ctrl K on Windows. The moment you do this, something changes visually. A purple outline appears around the button. You will see a small purple diamond icon on the left top corner of the frame. This is Figma's way of saying this is no longer a normal shape. This is now a component. Next, look at the sidebar. Switch to the Asset tab. Inside the section called Created in this file, you will now see your button. This confirms that you successfully created your first reusable element. Now you have the master button, the original, the hero version. You can drag this button out from the assets panel as many times as you want. Every single one of these will be connected to the original button. At this point, you already understand what a component is. You know why it matters. You know how to create your first one. You saw how Figma visually shows it with the purple diamond. You know where components appear inside the assets panel. And you understand why this original button is different from a normal shape. This understanding is very important because in the rest of this video and the next episode, we will build more advanced reusable elements like button variants, state changes, properties, icons inside components, and even nested components. But before we can do all of that, we need to understand the second half of this topic. The second half is about instances. Instances are copies that stay connected to the original component. And understanding how they behave is the key to building a clean and reliable design system. So let's move into that now. Now that we have our first component, let's talk about what happens when you actually use it. Go to the Assets panel on the left and drag your button out onto the canvas. Or if you prefer, simply copy the component that is already on your screen. Both ways are fine. The important thing is, the new one you just placed is not another component. It is an instance. This idea is very important. The original one is the component. All the copies are instances. Let's slow down here because this is something many designers get confused about. When you select the original component, you will see a solid purple diamond icon. When you select the instance version, the icon looks exactly the same shape, but it's hollow, empty on the inside. This hollow icon is Figma's way of telling that this one is a copy that follows the original. So whenever you see the hollow diamond, you know you are looking at an instance. Let's try something together. Select the original component, the master one. Now change the corner radius. Make the corner radius softer or sharper. The moment you do this, look at every instance on the canvas. They update instantly. If you change the text style in the master component, maybe you make the text bold or you change the font size, all instances update immediately. If you change the spacing inside the component, or you adjust the padding or the auto layout structure, again every instance follows. You only do the work one time. Everything else stays perfect in sync. This is how professional designers save hours and hours of work. Now let's talk about something very important. Even though instances are connected to the master component, Figma still lets you change certain things inside them. These changes are called overrides. For example, if you have a button component that says click me, the instances can each have different text like login, submit, buy now, add to cart, or anything. Changing the text does not break the connection to the master component. Figma understands that each instance should be able to have its own label. You can also replace icons inside an instance. Maybe one button has a shopping cart icon, another has a search icon, another has no icon at all. This is completely normal. You can change numbers, labels, and certain styles that are designed to be flexible. These editable parts exist so that every instance can be slightly different while still following the same rules as the main component. This is how you build patterns that behave consistently across your entire design. Now there are also things you cannot change. For example, if your master component has auto layout, you cannot move the text freely inside the instance. You cannot drag element around or rearrange the structure. You cannot change the padding or layout unless the master allows it. You cannot reshape the instance. You cannot modify styles that are locked in the component. All of these things belong to the master component only. Figma blocks you from breaking the structure because that structure is what keeps everything consistent. Think of it like building blocks. The component defines the shape of the block. The instances are just copies of the block. You can write on the block or put a sticker on it, but you cannot reshape the block completely unless you change the main mold. Sometimes you may change something inside an instance and then realize you want it back to the original. Maybe you change the text color and it looks weird. Maybe you tried an icon that didn't fit. Maybe the spacing got messed up. Instead of fixing things manually, Figma gives you a very helpful option. Select the instance. Look in the right sidebar. You will see an option called Reset Instance. Click it. Instantly, your instance returns to the default style of the master component. This is like saying, go back to the normal. There will be rare moments when you want to completely break the link between the instance and the master component. For example, maybe you want to redesign one specific button completely, or maybe you want to experiment without affecting everything else. In that case, right-click the instance and choose Detach Instance. After detaching, the hollow diamond icon disappears. The element becomes a normal frame again. There is no connection to the master component anymore. But be careful with this. If you detach too many things, you destroy the consistency of your project. Use detaching only when you really need to create something that does not belong to the system. Everything we just learned forms the foundation for the next few episodes. Because we are not stopping at simple components, in the next videos we will build buttons with multiple states, variants like primary, secondary, large, small, icons inside components, toggle and switches, cards and input fields, nested components inside bigger components, fully organized, scalable UI patterns. Every one of these things starts from understanding components and instances properly. If you skip this foundation, the next lesson will feel confusing. But if you understand this clearly, everything that comes next will feel natural and easy. And now you do understand it. And that's it for this video. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and write something in the comments. Thank you for watching. Alright, welcome back. In the last episode, you learned what components and instances really are. And now we are ready to take the next big step. This is the moment when your design workflow starts feeling like a real design system. We are going to build buttons with variants. If you are completely new to this, don't worry, I'll show you everything slowly. Before we touch any advanced stuff, we will start with something simple, a single button. And from that one button, we are going to create multiple variations like hover, pressed, disabled, and more. All inside one clean place. No mess, no duplication, just a smooth and organized setup. Let's start from the beginning. First, draw a basic button. It can be a rectangle with some text inside. Select both together and apply auto layout. Give it a little padding. Make the top and bottom maybe around 26 and the left around 40. Add your fill color. Round your corners a little. Nothing fancy yet, just a normal button. Now select the entire thing and turn it into a component. As soon as you do that, you will see the purple diamond show up around it. That means this is now your official main button. Think of it as your hero. Every other button version will come from this one. Now we are going to create our first variant. With the button selected, look on the right panel and click Add Variant. As soon as you do that, the button will duplicate itself inside a purple box. That purple box is called a component set. This is where all your button versions will live. Every version in this box is a different state of the same button. Right now you have two copies. Let's turn them into states. The first one is your default button. The second one is going to be your hover state. Click the second one and slightly change the color. Make it a little lighter or darker. It depends on your brand. But the idea is that this version should feel like a hover effect. Now duplicate one more and make that your pressed state. This one should look like the button is being pushed down. You can make it darker or remove a bit of shadow if you are using shadow. It should feel like a click. So now you have three states sitting next to each other: default, hover, and pressed. These three are the basics of any button system. Now let's name them. Select the entire component set. On the right side you will see a small area called properties. Click on it and create a new property called state. Once you do that, rename each button inside the set. The first one becomes default, the next one becomes hover, and the third one becomes pressed. Now each version has a proper name. Let's test it. Drag the button from your assets panel onto the canvas. Select it. On the right side, you should see a small drop down that says state. And when you click it, you can switch the button between default, hover, and pressed in 1 second. No rebuilding anything, no copying shapes. Everything is clean and organized. This is the power of variants. When you build real design systems, every component will need different states and different styles. Without variants, your file will become a huge mess of duplicate buttons everywhere. But with variants, everything stays inside one clean place, and you can switch between versions like flipping pages in a book. Now that we have the foundation ready, let's take this to the next level. We already built our default, hover, and pressed state. But the real design systems usually have more than just one style of button. Most products use at least two main types, a primary button and a secondary button. So let's create that. Go back to your component set and duplicate your default button variant. Not the entire set, just the default version inside the set. As soon as you duplicate, you will see a new variant appear inside the purple box. This one is going to become your secondary button. The primary button usually has a solid background color. The secondary button usually looks lighter. You can remove the fill and add a border, or you can use a lighter background. It depends on your brand. But the important point is that the secondary button should feel like a softer version of your main button. For now, I will just use this purple color, so it will be easier to move faster. Once that looks good, let's create hover and pressed version of this secondary button as well. Now to manage both category, we have to add one more component property. So select the entire component set, click on this plus icon to create a new property and name it type. So the first property for states and the second property is for type. I mean, it will describe if the button is primary or secondary. So how do we do that? It's easy. First, select all the primary buttons holding shift and change the name property to primary. In the same way, select all the secondary buttons holding shift and change the type to secondary. Then select each secondary buttons one by one and rename the state to default, hover, and press, like we did for primary buttons. Alright, now you can switch your live button on the canvas between primary, secondary, hover, pressed, and you will see all the styles changing instantly, which is very interesting and time saver. Now let's create one more variation that a lot of products use, which is an outline button. To do that, you can either copy and paste any button or just select a button and click on this add variant button. Then remove the fill completely. Add a 1 or 2 pixel stroke. Keep the corners the same. Then like before, create two more variations for hover and pressed. And then rename each button state and type. I'm going to do it first. Alright, now you have another clean and reusable button style. These outline buttons are really common in dashboards, forms, and profile pages. Next, let's create one more variation for icon button. This is a very important button for modern UI designs. Start by duplicating your primary button again and add any icon you want. For now, I am using this icon. Add a small gap between the text and icon. Then, like previous, create all variations of this type for different states. Then select all the states and change the type to icon. And after that, change each individual button state name to default, hover, and pressed. This is when you start to feel how powerful variants really are. You are not making new components for every style. You are simply adding new versions inside one clean component set. Inside properties, you will now see a whole list of states: default, hover, pressed, secondary, outline, and icon. And this is exactly how real design systems work. Everything is in one place. Everything is controlled from a drop-down. Let's test this on the canvas. Drag a button instance out from your assets panel. Look at the right sidebar. You can see now we have all the button group: primary, secondary, outlined, and icon, and all the states for each group: default, hover, and pressed. As you can see, the button is changing every time we change the type or states. Imagine building an entire website now. Instead of designing every button manually, you just drag a button, change the state, and move on. And if the client tells you later that all buttons need to be a little more rounded or slightly darker, you just update only in component set, and every button everywhere updates automatically. This is the true power of variants. They save you hours of work and keep everything consistent. That's it for this video. You now understand how to take one button and turn it into a full button system using a clean, organized component set. This skill alone puts you ahead of most beginners. In the next episode, we will go deeper into component properties like text controls, boolean switches, and instance swaps. These are the features that make your components flexible and professional. If you are enjoying this series, stay with me, like, subscribe, and drop a comment to support the channel. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Alright, welcome back to the Figma Master Series. Before we jump into today's lesson, let me quickly prepare the stage for you because this episode builds directly on the last two. If you haven't watched episode 8 and episode 9 yet, those will help a lot. I explained what components are, how instances work, and why they are the foundation of every professional UI design system. The links are in the description. But even if you are new and starting from this video, don't worry, I will walk you slowly and show everything on screen from scratch. Let's begin. I'm going to create a simple button again. Nothing fancy, just a blue frame and a bit of text inside that says button. You have seen me do this before. This is important because I want you to understand these properties inside a clean, simple component without any distractions. Make sure to use frame here instead of shape. Otherwise, you won't be able to control all the component properties I will show you in this video. Now I will select both the text and the frame, right click, create component, or you can press Option Command key if you are on Mac. There we go. This is our base component. This component is the starting point of everything we are going to build today. Next, I will duplicate it, detach it, make it rounded by adding corner radius, and make this version also a component. So now I have two versions of the same button side by side. I'll select both of them, and on the right sidebar I will click Combine as Variants. You will see a purple label appear under them that says two variants. Perfect. You can do the same thing in a easier way. Just select your button, right click, and select Create Component. Then click on this plus icon that says Add Variant. That's it. We can add more variant by clicking on this button. If this feels new to you, variants are simply different versions of the same component. For example, a default button and a rounded button, or a light button and a dark button, or a hover state and a pressed state. Everything lives inside one component, and you switch between them with properties. Now let's select the component set we just created. and look at the right sidebar. You will see something called properties. Right now, Figma already created one for us by default. It usually has a name like property 1 with values like frame 11 and frame 12 or anything that is your layer name. If this looks confusing, don't worry, you will understand it clearly in the next few minutes. Let's rename the variants first so it's easier to follow. I'll click on the first one and rename it default. Then the second one, I will rename this rounded. Now our variants make sense. One is the regular button and the other one has a different style. If I select the entire component set again, you will notice the property now shows default and rounded as options. This means when you drag this component into a real design later, you will be able to switch between default and rounded with a single click. That is the power of variant properties. Now let's go deeper. We will add more properties, and this is where Figma gets very fun and very powerful. First, let's make this component set border bigger so we can add more buttons inside. Then I'm going to duplicate these two buttons and change the colors for hover state. Then select the component set, click on this plus icon next to property list. From here I will choose variant. A pop-up window appears. I can name it shape or style or whatever I want. For now I will keep this simple and name it state. I will keep the value default and hit create property. Also I will change the first property name to type. Then I will select the third button and change the type to default and state to hover. Then select the fourth button and change the type to rounded and state to hover. Now we have two properties controlling this component set. If I take an instance from this component, you will notice how easy it is to switch between different styles using this property. If something looks messy right now, trust me, this will feel very natural by the end of this episode. Or you can just watch the video again, everything will be clear. Now let's move to the text properties, which is one of the most important things you will ever use inside components. I'll click inside the text layer of the default variant. In the right sidebar under the text section, you will see the content area showing the label button. If I change this text here, you can see the change on button as well. For now, I will keep it button. Beside it, there is a small icon for properties. When I click it, Figma gives me the option to turn this text into a reusable text property. I will name this property label. Then click create property. Now if I select the whole component set, watch what happens. There is a new property for text named label. Now if I change this label value to something like click me, you can see it's only affecting the first button because we still did not add the second button text with this property. So let's select the text inside the second button, click on this icon and add it to this property by clicking here. Now the text inside both variants is now controlled by a single label property. If I type new text here in the property field, both variants will immediately update. I am going to do the same for the remaining two buttons as well. This means your buttons can now change its label instantly without breaking spacing, auto layout or structure. This is exactly how big design systems like Material Design handle dynamic content. The layout stays consistent and only the text changes. Let me show you something important. When I edit the text directly inside the component, it updates for all the variants because they share the same text property. When I drag this component into a design later, that label field will appear in the right sidebar. So a designer can type anything they want like buy now, subscribe, download or whatever their screen needs. This is why text properties matter so much. They keep your components flexible but also consistent. Now that we understand variant properties and text properties, let's take it a bit deeper and prepare for the next part. I want to show one more quick example. I'll add a second text property to the rounded variant. Maybe this variant needs a secondary label. So I'll select the text layer, create another text property, rename it label 2 and give it a default value. you will see how suddenly our component is starting to behave like a real product UI element, something that can adapt to different screens and context. We have covered a lot already, and this is only the first half. So let me pause here and quickly recap what you have learned so far. You now know how to create a component, create variants, rename variants so they are clear, create variants properties, create text properties, and understand how those properties sync across variants. So take a breath, relax for a moment, and when you are ready, move on to the second half. Alright, now that you understand text properties and variant properties, it's time to explore the part of Figma that makes your components feel alive. This is where you go from simple buttons to real dynamic UI elements that behave like actual app components. Let's continue exactly where we left off. I still have my 4 variants here: default, rounded, and hover states. Each have a text property called label. Everything is clear, simple, and ready. Now we will add one of the most important properties in all of Figma, a boolean properties. Think of a boolean property as a simple switch: on or off, show or hide, true or false. It's incredibly powerful because it lets you control things inside your component with a single click. Let me show you. Inside the default variant, I'll add a simple piece of text. It could be something like new. This is just an example. You can imagine this being a badge, a tag, an icon, or anything that appears only in certain situations. Right now it's always visible because it's just a normal layer. So first I will select the whole component set. Look at the right sidebar. There is the same property icon we used earlier for text properties, but this time instead of choosing text, I'm going to choose boolean. A little pop-up appears where I can name the property. I'll simply call it show, and the value is true by default. Then click create property. The new boolean property is now showing here. Now we have to connect it with the small text. So let's select the small text. Click on this small icon inside appearance section. Previously for the text property, we used this similar icon. But for boolean property, make sure to select this icon inside the appearance section. Then select this show property which we just created and watch what happens. Let me just take an instance from this button. On the properties panel, you now see a toggle called show. When I switch it off, the new label disappears. When I switch it on, it comes back. This means that every designer who uses this button later can decide whether they want this little badge visible or not, without moving anything, without deleting anything, without breaking the component. Boolean properties make your UI clean and predictable. They avoid messy layers floating around. Everything is controlled logically. Now let's move to instance swap properties, which are equally powerful. Instance swap lets you replace a nested component inside another component. This is perfect for swapping icons. Let's say I have a small collection of simple icons here. I downloaded from the Figma community. Now these are just simple icons. I'll make all of this component. We can either select one by one and click create component, or we can select all of these icons, then click on this small drop down icon and select the second option called create multiple component. This is another way of creating multiple element component faster. Now I'll copy a button from here and go back to main button. I'll place the icon inside the button layout. Now we have a button with a text label and an icon. Here is the important part. When I select the icon inside the button and look at the right sidebar, you can see there is a new icon called create instance swap property. You will only see it when the icon is a component. So let's click on it and name the property something like icon. Then click on this plus icon and you will be able to pick all the components you just created and want available in the swap menu. So I'll select the icons I created. Then click create property. Now in the property list, I can switch the icon from search to close to arrow or anything. This means when someone drags this button onto their screen, they no longer need to open the layers panel and manually replace icons. They just choose from a drop down list and the button updates automatically. This is how modern design systems work. Every element is flexible but consistent. I am showing all of these component settings with buttons. It doesn't mean that you will only use component for buttons. You can use this component and properties for anything that you use on multiple pages and multiple sections. It can be navbar, footer, card or anything. Now let me show you a quick real example. I'll duplicate my button variants, so now I have 4. I'll turn on the show property for some of them. I'll change the icon property for others. I'll edit the label property for a few more. Look at that. We now have 4 different buttons that all share the same structure but behave completely different. All controlled through properties. No manual edits, no broken layouts. Everything stays aligned and perfectly managed by auto layout. Now let's talk about something that confuses beginners: conflicting variants. Sometimes, if 2 variants are using the same values for all their properties, Figma will show a warning that says some variants have the same property values applied. This basically means Figma is confused because it can't tell the variants apart. When that happens, you can simply adjust the property value on each variant. Make sure each variant has a unique combination of values. Once you fix that, the warning disappears. Next, let me show the component configuration window because most people don't use it, but it's incredibly helpful. If I click the settings icon at the top right of the component setting, a configuration window opens. Here I can write a description explaining how to use this component. I can leave notes for my team, such as when to use each variance or how the properties should behave. Then when a designer or developer select this component set, they will see your note here. This makes your design system more understandable and it helps your future self as well. Now let's look at how all these properties come together when I drag this component into a real design. I'll pull the component from the asset panel. It appears on the canvas and instantly the right sidebar gives me control over the label, the type, the show toggle, the icon and any other properties I added. No layers, no searching, no renaming, just clean, powerful, easy to use controls. This is the magic of component properties. Your design becomes modular. Everything becomes faster. Your work becomes more consistent and your UI begins to feel like a real product system, not a bunch of random shapes. Let's take a moment to breathe and appreciate what we have built in this episode. You now understand how to create variants, how to rename them, how to create variant properties, how to create text properties, how to create boolean show and hide properties, how to create instance swap properties, how to fix conflicting variants, how to add description for your components, and how these properties work together inside a real UI design. This knowledge puts you miles ahead of most beginners. In the next episode, we are going to combine everything you learned today and take it even further. We will build smart interactions between variants. This is where your components start behaving like actual UI elements with states and transitions. If you still didn't watch episode 8 and 9, make sure to watch them for more clarity. If you are enjoying this series, stay with me. Make sure to like, subscribe and leave a small comment to support the channel. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Alright, welcome back. Up to now, we have been focusing on structure. We built components, created variants and controlled them using properties like text, boolean and instance swap. Everything works, but one thing is still missing. Right now, if you want to see a hover or pressed state, you have to manually switch variants from the properties panel. That's fine while building, but that's not how real interfaces behave. In real products, buttons change automatically based on user actions. When someone hovers, the style changes. When they press, it changes again. When they release, it goes back. Smart component interactions let us simulate that behavior directly inside the component. So instead of switching variants manually, Figma switches them for us based on interactions. That's what we are going to set up in this video. If you haven't watched episode 9 and episode 10, I recommend watching them fast because this video directly based on components, variants and properties. I have added the links in the description, but I'll still show everything clearly so you can follow along. Let's start by creating a simple button again. I'm using a frame, not a shape, because frames give us full control over layout and interactions later. Inside the frame, I'll add text that says button. Also apply auto layout, so spacing stays consistent. Now I'll select everything. Right click and create a component. This is our base component. Next, I'll click on this add variant button and add two more variants of this button. One variant for the hover state and another variant will be the pressed state. I'll make small visual changes so each state is easy to recognize. The exact design doesn't matter here. What matters is that each state is visually different. Before adding interactions, I'll rename the variants to default, hover, and pressed. Clear naming is important here because interactions rely on this structure. Now the component is ready. Now I'm going to switch to the prototype tab. Up to now, we were working in design, which controls how things look. Prototype is where we defined how things react. I'll start by selecting the default variant. On the right sidebar, I'll click Add Interaction. For the trigger, I'll choose while hovering. This means the moment the cursor enters the button. For the action, I'll choose Change to and then select the hover variant. For animation, I'll use Smart Animate and keep the duration short. I'm not changing the curve right now. We will talk about curves later when we focus on motion details. Now I'll move to the hover variant. I'll add another interaction here. For the trigger, I'll choose mouse leap. This means when the cursor moves away from the button. For this action, I will choose Change to and select Default. Smart Animate stays on and I'll keep the duration as it is. At this point, the hover behavior is complete. Now let's add the pressed state. I'll select the hover variant again and add one more interaction. For the trigger, I'll choose mouse down. This happens the moment the user presses the mouse button. For the action, I'll choose Change to and select pressed. Animation stays on Smart Animate. Next, I'll select the pressed variant. I'll add another interaction. For the trigger, I'll choose mouse up. This happens when the user releases the click. For the action, I'll choose Change to and select hover. Again, Smart Animate. Now let's test this. When I hover over the button, it switches to the hover state. When I press the mouse, it changes to the pressed state. When I release the mouse, it goes back to the hover. And when I move the cursor away, it returns to the default state. All of this is happening inside the component itself. That means every instance of this button will behave the same way, without adding interactions again on each screen. Now let's make this a bit more realistic. In real products, buttons are not always interactive. Sometimes a button needs to be disabled. So I'll duplicate one of the existing variants. This new one will be the disabled state. I'll reduce the opacity and remove any visual hover feedback so it clearly looks inactive. Then I'll rename this variant to disabled. One important thing here, I'm not adding any hover or press interactions to this button. So when the button switches to disabled, nothing happens on hover or click. This is intentional. Good interaction design is not just about adding behavior, it's also about removing behavior when interaction shouldn't be allowed. Now let's quickly talk about Smart Animate. Smart Animate works best when all variants share the same structure. That means the same layers, same layout, and the same naming. If animations ever feel broken or jumpy, it usually means something doesn't match between the variant. That's not a motion problem, that's a structure problem. Keeping your components clear makes interactions feel smooth and predictable. Now let me show you how this works in a real design. I'll drag the button from the assets panel onto the canvas. As soon as it's on the screen, it already behaves correctly. I don't need to add any interactions again. If I duplicate this button multiple times, every instance behaves the same way. Hover works, press works, and release works. This is why interactions should live inside components. You define the behavior once, and every instance inherits it automatically. That's how you keep your designs consistent and easy to manage. Now let's summarize. We took a basic button component. We created variants from different states. We connected those variants using prototype interactions. We used Smart Animate to keep transitions smooth. We handled hover, press, and disabled behavior inside one system. This is the mindset shift. You are no longer just designing screens. You are designing behavior. In the next episode, we will go deeper with nested components and overrides. If this episode helped you, like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Alright, welcome back. In the last episodes, we learned how to build components, add variants, create properties, and even add smart interactions. Now we are going to take everything one step further. Today is all about nested components and overrides. This is the technique designers use when building real product UI. Things like cards, pricing sections, navbars, product tiles, and dashboard widgets. All of these use components inside components. So let's start from the simplest example. What nested components actually are. I'll do this slowly right on the screen. First, I'll create a very simple button. I'll use a frame, add text inside, add auto layout, adjust the spacing, and turn it into a component. Now I'll create a second component, a tiny icon. Just a small square or a shape is fine for now. Now watch what happens when I drag this icon component inside the button component. This is the moment it becomes a nested component. The button is the parent. The icon inside is another component living inside this parent. That's all nested component means. One component inside another. When I select the icon on the canvas, you can see Figma shows the diamond icon on the right sidebar. It's still a component instance. It didn't lose anything. Now imagine you are designing a real app. Buttons often have icons, cards have images, product tiles have tags, navbars have menu items. All of these things are reusable elements and they change in different places. So nested components lets you build real UI that can be edited quickly without breaking anything. Let me show you how overrides work with this. I'll drag a fresh instance of the button onto the canvas. Inside the button instance, I still see the icon instance. And here is the important part. I can override the icon inside this specific button without touching the main component. For example, I can swap it, hide it, change the text, update the label. None of this breaks the component. None of this disconnects anything. Overrides let you make changes only to this instance, while the main component stays clean. And if I go back and update the base button component, maybe I change spacing or add new styling. Every button in the project updates automatically, but overrides stay intact. This is exactly how design systems stay flexible without becoming messy. Let's build something slightly bigger. To make this clearer, let's prepare for a real example. I'll create 3 small components: an image component, a title text component, a button component, the one we made earlier. These are all simple, clean components. Now I'll place all 3 inside a parent frame. This frame will become a card. Then right click and turn the whole thing into a component. Now we have a card component with multiple nested components inside it. If I duplicate this card on the canvas, I can now override the image, the title text, the button label, and even the icon inside the button, all without breaking anything. The structure stays the same, only the content changes. This is the core idea behind nested components and overrides. Now that you understand how nested components work inside a card, let's go a little deeper and look at how global updates behave. Let's say I go back to the main component and change the spacing, the corner radius, or even the entire color style. Watch what happens. Every button inside every card updates instantly, but the overrides you made, like the text label or the swapped icon, stay exactly the same. They don't reset, they are protected. This is the biggest benefit of nested components. You can change your entire design system with one update, and every instance across your project adapts automatically. Nothing breaks, nothing shifts randomly. everything stays clean. Now I'll drag the card into a real layout. I'll duplicate it multiple times. For each card I can override the image, the title, the button icon, the button label, the visibility of extra elements. Within seconds I have 5 different cards that all look unique, but they are all built from the same master system. This is the real power of nested components. If this episode helped you, make sure to subscribe and leave a small comment to support the channel. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Alright, welcome back. Today's episode is short but extremely important. We are talking about naming and organization. The thing that keeps your Figma files clean, easy to understand and professional. If you have ever opened a messy file where nothing is named properly, you know how hard it is to work. So in this video, I'll show you how to name things the right way and structure your file like a real design system. Let's start. I'll create a simple button on the canvas, a frame, some text, and maybe an icon. By default, the layers are something like frame 1, start 1, and the same text label. This is fine for tiny projects, but if you leave names like this, your file becomes impossible to manage. So here is the rule. Name layers based on their job. I'll rename them like button/container, button/icon, and button/label. This takes 10 seconds, but it makes your entire design system clearer instantly. Now I'll turn this button into a component. Instead of naming it like button copy 3 or blue button etc., I'll use this pattern, group/component. For example, button/primary, button/secondary, navbar/item. This keeps everything grouped inside the asset panel. When your design system grows, this structure is what shapes you. If you have variants, keep the naming simple. A button might have state like default, hover, pressed, focus, and type like primary and secondary. Variant should always follow the logic. Property equal to value. That's it. You shouldn't see long names like primary hover light blue button. Instead, just keep it simple like primary default, primary hover, primary pressed. In the same way, secondary default, secondary hover, etc. Figma handles the switching using properties. Next, let's talk about pages in the left sidebar. Avoid random names like page 1, page 2, test, untitled. Instead, keep it clean like mood board, designs, components, screens, and more. This helps you and it helps anyone else using your file. If your component contains other components like a card with an image, title, and a button, name the layers clearly like card/image, card/title, card/button. This ensures every nested element stays readable and consistent. Here is the only rules you need. Name things based on function, not color. Avoid names like blue button. Instead, use primary. Keep names short. Use the slash to group components. Don't rename randomly. Stay consistent. This alone makes your design system feel way more professional. This is a short episode, but it's one of the most important ones. In the next episode, we'll actually build a reusable component library, which is very important. So make sure to like and subscribe for more videos like this. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Alright, welcome back. Today we are going to start building something you will use for the rest of your design career, a reusable component library. Everything we built in the previous episodes comes together here. Components, variants, properties, nested elements, all of that becomes much more powerful when you organize everything in one place. And the best part is this, once your library is ready, you won't rebuild buttons, cards, navbars or inputs again. You will just drag them from the assets panel and start designing instantly. So let's begin from the foundation. First, I'll create a brand new page and name it Library Foundations. This page will hold the core building blocks of the entire system. Now let's create a few essential style tokens. I'll drag a simple rectangle. Then on the right sidebar under fill, I'll click the 4-dot icon and create a new color style. I'll name it something clean and predictable like blue/25, blue/50, blue 100, etc. You can choose whatever naming style you like, but keep it consistent. These color tokens will be used across every component we build later. Now I will create some rectangles with different colors with clear namings like blue/900, blue/800, etc. So all these styles will be in a folder called blue. To save all of these colors as a style, you can either select each rectangle one by one and save as style like this, or you can do it faster with a smart method. For that, first you have to name all the layers clearly. Then use this plugin called Styler. I'll talk about it in an upcoming video. It's basically save element as styles based on layer names and properties. So clear naming is important here. I'll just select all of these boxes, go to plugin and find this plugin called Styler and click on generate styles. As you can see, it has generated all the colors as styles under a folder called blue with clear naming. I'll repeat this for a few more colors, just enough to cover basic UI needs. Now we have our first set of tokens ready: blue, purple, gray, white, black, and primary. Next, I'll create styles for text. I'll type something, maybe heading. Then set the font size, weight, line height. Then I'll save it as text style. To make the work faster, I already made a few essential ones, like all the headings from H1 to H6, 2 subheadings, 4 body text, few captions, and label styles. Again, to save all of these typography properties as a style, I'm going to select everything and use this styler plugin. So it will save all the styling according to my layers names. And as you can see, all the styles are now saved on the left side. Now we can apply these styles on any design element we want, like this one, in just one click. Now it's time to define spacing values. You can make a frame and list your spacing scale like 4, 8, 12, 16, 24, 32 and more. Everything will be multiples of 4. You don't need to create these as styles. Just keep them visible as reference so you know which spacing increment to follow inside components. Then you need to create 1 or 2 effect styles, like some styles for shadow and a few styles for blur. Now as you can see on the right side, under effect styles, we have now some styles for shadows and some styles for blur. We can delete these two. These are not for effects, these are for fill. So the foundation is ready. So we haven't made a single component yet, but we prepared everything the components will rely on, like text styles, color styles and effect styles. Now I'll create a simple button using the same method from the previous episodes. I'll start with a frame, add text that says button, add auto layout, apply color style, text style and spacing token. And then I'll wrap everything and turn it into a component. This is our base component. From here, we can create variants like default, hover, pressed, disabled. We can add text properties we have been using, like text label, boolean for icon, instance of property if I want multiple icons. And I'll make sure everything uses the tokens we created earlier. Now we have a button that is fully reusable and future proof. Any update to our color styles or text styles will automatically update every button in the entire library. Also, I added a few more essential components that we may use multiple times in the future. Now it's time to publish it as library. So we can use all of these designs token on other files as well. I'll go to the top right, open assets and click on this library icon. A window appears showing all components and styles. I'll review everything here. Text look good, colors look good, components are named properly. Now I'll hit publish. At this moment, your entire design system becomes available to every file in your project. No more copy paste, no more rebuilding buttons every time. Now I'll switch to a new blank file. On the left panel, I'll open the assets tab. As you can see, the library we just published appears here. Just click add to file. Double click. Now I can drag in buttons, toggle, radio buttons, and all the components we created. Text properties, booleans, icon swaps, hover states, all included. Also, if I take a text, write something like button, and if I go here, you can see all the styles are available here as well. So we can use all the design tokens we created earlier on any file inside our workspace. Now let's talk about something extremely important. If I go back to the library file and edit one of these styles, for example, I change the primary color and publish the changes, then go back to the new file and update it. As you can see, all the buttons changed automatically. Now if I add a stroke, for example here on the main component, and publish the changes, you can see every instance updates automatically. All the overrides will be intact. Nothing breaks, no layout shift. Your full system updates safely. This is how professional UI libraries stay consistent across hundreds of projects. If this episode helped you, make sure to like the video and subscribe. And as always, I'll see you in the next one. Alright, welcome back. Today we are going to solve one of the most common problems beginners face in Figma. You design something, it looks perfect, but the moment you resize the frame, everything breaks. Text moves, buttons shift, icons float away, and the reason is simple. The layout has no constraints. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how constraints and resizing rules work, but in the simplest way possible. Everything I do will be directly on screen, so you can follow along without thinking too much. Let's get started. I'll quickly create a simple frame. Inside it, I'll add a small square so you can see things clearly. Now if I resize this frame, the square doesn't move the way you expect. And that's because Figma is asking one question: where should this element stay when the frame gets bigger or smaller? That's exactly what constraints control. So let's look at the options. If I select the square and choose left, it will stay stuck to the left edge no matter how much I resize the frame. If I choose right, it stays stuck to the right. If I choose center, it will always remain at the center. And if I choose scale, Figma will scale its position based on the original proportions. You don't have to memorize anything right now. Just watch how each one can behave when I resize the frame. Your brain will understand the logic automatically. Let me show you a real example. I'll create a container and add a button inside it. Now I'll resize the container. If the button is constrained to the left, it stays left. If I switch it to the right, it jumps to the right. If I choose center, it stays centered no matter what. This is the easiest way to control button placement inside sections or cards. Whenever your layout is shifting randomly, it's almost always a constraint issue. Let's fix a very common mistake. I'll create a button with an icon on the right side. Now watch what happens when I resize the button. The icon moves weirdly, not because auto layout is wrong, but because its constraints are not set. So I'll select the icon and set the horizontal constraint to the right and vertical to center. Now when I resize the button, the icon stays exactly where it should. simple fix, but it makes a huge difference. Next, I'll show you a clean column layout. On the left, a little text block. On the right, a large image. Now I'll resize the whole frame. If the right side is set to scale, it stretches. If the left side is set to left, it stays fixed and doesn't stretch. This is exactly how responsive dashboards and product layouts work. One side grows, the other side stays stable. Again, you don't have to remember anything. Just keep watching the behavior. Now let's talk about resizing rules. Because constraints control position, but resizing rules control size. This is where most beginners get confused. So I'll make it super simple. I'll select the box inside the frame. On the right sidebar, you will see 3 horizontal options: fixed width, hug contents, fill container. Let me show each of these on screen so you understand instantly. Fixed width means the layer won't grow. Hug contents means it automatically adjusts to its text. Fill container means it stretches to take all available space. Same thing for vertical resizing. This seems small, but once you understand it, your layout will never break again. Alright, now that you understand the basics of constraints and resizing rules, let's bring everything together with a real example. Something you will use in every project. A responsive cart layout. I'll start with a simple cart. Inside it, I have a product image, a title, a small description, and a button. Everything is clean with auto layout. Now I'll resize the cart. And yes, things break. And it's not responsive. This is exactly why constraints matter. It should work like this. Let me fix it step by step. First, I'll remove auto layouts, so it will be easier to change. Then I'll select the image. For a card like this, the image should fill the width, but keep a fixed height. So I'll set width to fill container and height to fixed. Constraints top and left right. Now when I resize the card, the image scales correctly. Next, I'll select the text block. For text, you usually want it to stretch based on the available space. So first, I'll add the block to auto layout and do the same with the main container as well. I'll set width to fill container and vertical hug contents. Now, the text reflows naturally as the card grows. And finally, the button. Inside this layout, the button shouldn't stretch. So I'll set width to hug content and vertical also set to hug content. Now, when I resize the whole card, image is responsive, text is also changing, button stays in position, the entire card becomes responsive. This is exactly how you build real product UI that adapts to different screens. Before we finish, let me show you one more example because it confuses many designers. I'll create 2 elements side by side. If I resize horizontally, constraints decide left, right, center or scale. If I resize vertically, constraints decide top, bottom, center or scale. So constraints control direction, resizing rules control size. Once you understand the difference between these two, everything becomes predictable. In the next episode, we will talk about grid systems, columns, gutter, margin, 8-point grid method, which is the next step for building clean and scalable layouts. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like and subscribe, and thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Alright, welcome back. In the last episode, we talked about constraints and resizing rules and how to keep layout responsive when screen changes. Today we are going to talk about grid systems. This is one of those topics that sounds complicated at first, but once you understand it, everything in your design starts to feel more clean and professional. In this video, I will cover everything you need to know about 8-point grid system, like what is a grid, why you should use grid in your UI design, what is the meaning of 8-point grid system, how columns, gutter and margin works, how to use grid in real layout, and when you can break grid layout. So if you are a beginner, this video is for you. First, let me tell you what a grid really is. A grid is not something fancy. It's just a guide. It helps you decide where things should start, where they should end, and how much space should be between elements. That's it. Grids don't design for you. They help you stay consistent. And consistency is what makes a UI feel professional. As you can see here on the screen, we have a bento box with 5 boxes. And each box sitting on columns, like first 2 boxes sitting on 6 columns, and each of these 3 boxes are sitting on 4 columns. So to keep consistency, I put all the boxes on columns. The gap between these boxes are 24. This consistency is possible because of the columns. I will show you how. First, let me tell you why you should use layout guide or layout grid. Both are same. If I turn on this 12 column layout, as you can see, all of these boxes are sitting on columns perfectly without going outside. That is the reason why each of these boxes are looking perfect. If I open this column setting, as you can see, the gutter amount is 24, which is multiples of 8. Gutter means the gap between each columns. As you can see the black gaps between these columns. So since we set the gutter to 24 and between each cut we keep one gutter gap, the gaps between each cuts are now 24. Now let's talk about the 8-point grid, because this is the most commonly used system in modern UI design. The idea is very simple. All spacing values should be multiples of 8. That's it. As you can see here in our layout grid, we used 80, which is multiples of 8, and 24, which is also multiples of 8. So instead of random numbers like 13, 19 or 27, you use numbers like 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48, etc. This is not only for layout grid. This applies to padding, margins, spacing between elements, component sizes. Now the question is, why 8? Because it divides nicely into smaller numbers, works well on different screen sizes, and scales cleanly across devices. You don't need to remember anything fancy. Just remember this rule. If your spacing is divisible by 8, you are probably doing it right. You can also use this 4-point grid system. This is also pretty useful and very similar. Sometimes I personally like this one. The difference is, instead of 8, you will multiply by 4, like 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, etc. Now let me show you how to set up layout grid before starting any project. So I'm going to click here, select the frame tool and take a desktop frame. Now go here and click on layout grid. Click here and select column. As you can see, now there are 5 columns. For desktop, type 12 column. As you can see, there are now 12 columns. We can increase the opacity. I think 10% is okay, so you can see the content clearly. Then you have to select type. For fixed layout grid, for website, landing pages or portfolios, we always use stretch. So the container width always stay consistent. The margin will expand and shrink. If you are designing for dashboard or web apps, then you can select others like center or right, left if you need. For websites and portfolios or Webflow sites, we usually use stretch. Then let's talk about margin. First I will type something like 24. So you can see the margin. As you can see, margin means outside of the columns. If I increase it like 80, as you can see, this is the margin on both sides. So you can use any margin you want. It depends on your site, like how much space you need for your content. I usually use 80 or 160 if the website content is very small. Or if I am not sure, I usually use 80 or 96. You can use any number multiples of 8 like 24, 160 or anything. Then let's talk about gutter. Gutter means the space between each columns. For gutter, we also use any numbers multiples of 8 like 24 or 32. I usually use any of these number 24 or 32. And if you need small gap, you can use 24. So this is for desktop. Now let's talk about tabs. So I can select this frame and click on tab plate and select any template you want. For now, let's select this one. Okay, so again go here, click on columns, and columns count will be 6 and type will be stretch. You can play with these colors. Then it's time to set up margin. You can use 24 or 32. Both are multiples of 8. For gutter, I usually use 16 pixels, which is recommended. This is the minimum, because if you use below this number, maybe sometimes it will go outside of the screen, or on some devices it will go outside. Now let's talk about mobile phone. So I'm going to select any device. For now, let's select this one, iPhone 16. Again click here, layout grid, select columns, and type will be a stretch. Margin will be something like 26 maybe, and gutter will be 26 as well. This is the settings I use most of the time. Now this was a vertical grid, but to design everything pixel perfect, we also need horizontal grid. So again select the frame, click here again, and this time instead of columns select rows, and rows count will be a big number like 1000. Now as you can see, rows are not visible. So first select the type to top, and now everything is visible. Then set height to 8, and gutter will be any number multiples of 8 like 8. Now that we have this horizontal grid, it will be very helpful for us to design pixel perfect. Let me draw a rectangle so I can show you how it works. I'll also change the color so you can see it clearly. Now let's say I want to make it little bit bigger. I'll just grab it like this, and as you can see, it's snapping to the next column or next row. So it will be very helpful for you or for us to design something pixel perfect while following 8-point spacing system. Now let me share with you one more important tips. Let's say I want to change its position and put it a little bit below. If I hold shift and press down arrow, as you can see, it's changing position 10 pixel each time. So it's not following our 8-point grid system. So to make it change 8 pixel each time, we have to change the nudge amount. So go here, find nudge amount, and change the big nudge amount to 8. Then whenever you hold shift and press any arrow, it will change position 8 pixel each time. Now you can use the same horizontal grid for tablet and mobile devices. You don't need to change anything. Just copy the grid by pressing Ctrl C from here and paste on mobile and tablet by pressing Ctrl V. When you don't need this grid, you can just turn off this, or you can use shortcut like Shift G. It will be hidden or visible each time you press Shift G. I use it every time. This is very helpful. So remember these shortcuts. So now you understand the meaning of layout grid, how to use them, why use them, and what is the benefit of using layout grid. If you have any question, please let me know by commenting below. And also don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create local variables in your Figma project and design your UI 10x faster. You are going to learn how to set up dark mode and light mode, so you don't have to redesign every UI elements manually for each mode. I'll also show you how to create responsive desktop and mobile sizes for all elements, which will save you hours of work. Then we are going to use variable for typography, colors, corner radius, and more. I will keep this video short and simple, so you are going to learn everything very fast. Let's get started. Okay, to create variable, first click on any empty area of your page. Then you will see this variable setting. Click on this setting icon. Let me make it bigger. Now click here to create a collection. I'm going to name it primitive. Here we will keep all of our base elements like colors, spacing, numbers, and more. So first click here and select color. I'm going to name it white. Also select the color white. Then right click and create group. I'm going to name it colors. Then press shift enter to duplicate it. Name it black and change the color to black. I'm just adding random colors for this specific UI. For a real project, first you have to find colors Then save everything with clear naming. For now I am just adding colors like white, black, blue, purple, so we can edit this pricing card. Next we will create our spacing values like 4, 8 following 4-point grid system. So first click on all, click here, now select number, name it 0, the value will be 0. Duplicate it by pressing shift enter, name 1, value will be 4, because we are following 4-point grid system. In the same way duplicate it multiple times and name everything 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and the value will be multiples of 4 like 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. For now I am just adding a few numbers, but for a real project you may have to add up to hundreds. Now select everything while pressing shift, create a new group and name it spacing. We just created our first step. We are not going to use these values on UI because we will create another collection for tokens. So click on this plus icon, name it tokens. Here we will define everything including button colors, background colors, spacing tokens and more. So click on this plus icon, select color, name it BG primary. I'm going to use it for primary color. Then instead of selecting new color, I'm going to reference it to the previous color we set. So this is the power of component. Here we can reference one element to another. So in the future, if a client want to change the white to creamy, we don't have to manually change all the elements that used white. We can just change the white color to creamy and all the UI elements and properties will be changed automatically. So always use variable instead of styles. So this primary color will be for background. So in the same way I'm going to define some other tokens like text color, button label color, primary text color, secondary text color. Again, this is not the right way for big project. I am just adding these shortcut colors for only this project, so you can understand how to add them. Now select all the colors, create a new group and name it colors. Then select all, click here and select number. Now we will define spacing tokens. So the first one will be spacing extra small and reference it to the spacing numbers we previously selected. In the same way I'm going to select multiple spacing values like extra small, medium, large, extra large and reference value to the previous spacing values. Now select all of these spacing tokens, create a new group and name it spacing. So our token for colors and spacing is done. Now it's time to add them to the UI elements. First I'm going to add colors to all of these text and buttons. As you can see, when I hover over the color, the name of the tokens is showing. So I can easily select the color. Now let me tell you something. If I select the same black color for the body text as well, it won't be good for hierarchy. So I'm going to add one more token for body text. This is very easy. I will just decrease the opacity. And as you can see, it's automatically updated. In the same way, I'm going to add all these elements to the colors. Okay, now you know how to apply colors to any elements. Let me show you how to add spacing values we just created. So let's select this auto layout. As you can see, the gap is now 4. If I click on this drop down and go to variable, I can select our spacing variables. As you can see, it's changing based on our size. In the same way, I'm going to select another one and apply variable. Not only gap, we can add it to padding as well. Now let me show you how to set up variable for corner radius. So go here, select token, click on all, create a new number variable, name it radius small. You can type a custom value or you can reference to the previous number we set. For now I am going to select these spacing values. In the same way I am going to create some more variables for corner radius like small, medium, large and create a new group, name it radius. Now select the main frame. If you go here, click variable, you will find the radius we just created. We can change different sizes. In the same way, I'm going to add corner radius to the button as well. Now let me show you quickly how to set up dark mode and light mode so that the text color and background color will automatically change. To do that, go to setting, select color, click on this plus icon to create a new mode. I am going to name it dark and the first one will be light. Now I will just change colors in the dark mode. Like I want the background to be black and the text color will change from black to white. Okay, let's test it. If I select the frame, I will get a new option to change between light and dark mode, and it will automatically change all the colors. Using the same mode feature, you can set up desktop and mobile responsiveness. I will show you how. First we have to set up font and font sizes. Then you can easily understand how it works. First, create a new collection for typography. Click on this plus icon. This time select string. Name it heading 1 or h1 or whatever naming styles you use. Then type the font name. Make sure the font name is correct. Otherwise it won't work. I am going to use Inter for h1 and Roboto for h2 and Instrument Serif for h3. I have selected different fonts so you can easily understand the difference. I am going to create a new group with this and name it family. Then we will create another group for font weight. So click here, select string and name it like regular. Value will be also regular. Medium, value will be medium. You can also use alias of this like font weight 700, 600, but I think this one is very easy to understand. Then select everything, create a new group and name it weight. Then we will create another group for font sizes. This time we will use numbers. I'm going to name it like small, medium, large and type values like 16, 20, or you can reference to the spacing system we created. Then select everything, create a new group and name it size. Now just select a text, click here, click on variable and you will be able to select variables we created. In the same way we can add font weight variable. Click on variable and select the variable you want. Then click on size, click variable and choose the size you want. Now I'm going to set all the text to the variables. Now let me show you how to set up variable for mobile so that it will automatically jump from desktop to mobile. So click on this plus icon to create a new mode. I'm going to name it mobile and the first mode will be desktop. Now I will just decrease the spacing value here because usually small devices need smaller font size compared to desktop. Now to test it, I'm going to take a mobile frame, add a fill color. I'm going to duplicate all the text and bring it here. Now if I switch to mobile, as you can see, the font size automatically changed. Of course, all the sizes are not actually correct. I just added random numbers so you can see the changes. I hope now you know the basics of variable. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching.